Okay, so have you ever been like diligently putting money into your 401k, doing all the adulting things,
Hmm.
and then this thought pops into your head, what if it's all for nothing? Like, what if AGI comes along and flips the script on, the whole work retire thing?
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of a mind-bending thought, right? So that's what we're diving into today. We found this super interesting piece, and it really digs into how close AGI might actually be and what that could mean for, like, our retirement plans, our careers, the whole nine
Yeah,
yards.
it really gets into it. And I think the interesting thing about this piece is it does take a two-pronged approach, right? It
Right.
says, okay, what if this happens like tomorrow? Which, maybe a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
But then also, it's like, well, what if this is still a few decades off?
Yeah.
So it kind of plays out these two very different scenarios.
Yeah, and I think, like, that's what makes it so compelling, right? Because on the one hand, you have this scenario where AGI arrives tomorrow, robots are handling everything,
Right.
resources are abundant. Like, you almost get the sense that money becomes irrelevant.
Right. Right. Like AGI is the ultimate provider.
Exactly, yeah.
And you don't have to worry about those things, which, sounds great on the surface. But when you really think about it, the article even cites a study said that, early AGI could actually boost global productivity by like 20% in just a decade.
Wow.
Which is, mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's huge.
But then it also begs the question, who benefits from all that?
Right.
How does that wealth get distributed?
Right.
And then you have the flip side of it. Like a lot of people find their purpose in their work. So if suddenly like, robots are doing everything.
What do we even do?
Yeah, like what's the point?
And that kind of dovetails perfectly into the other scenario, which is, maybe not as, let's say, optimistic.
Yeah, a little more dystopian.
Yeah, a little dystopian, a little Mad Max, but with Teslas instead of, souped up muscle cars.
Right. It's interesting because they draw this parallel in the article to like the early days of the internet, right? Like when it first came on the scene, a lot of people like brushed it off. They were like, oh, it's just a fad, and then boom, it just completely revolutionized, everything.
Overnight.
And so they're saying, what if AGI follows a similar trajectory, but just like warp speed? Like all of a sudden, those skills that maybe we thought were kind of obsolete, like, I don't know, farming, building, like all of a sudden those become like the most valuable skills.
Pliable skills.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, it really begs the question, should we all just like cash out our 401ks, buy a plot of land somewhere and start like, stockpiling seeds and canned goods?
Well, the article doesn't necessarily go that far. And, in the interest of full disclosure, it does present a counter-argument. There are some experts out there who believe that, we're still a ways off from true AGI, like the kind that can really, like, upend everything.
Right. So don't go full-on doomsday prepper just yet.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. It's more about, not making any rash decisions based on hype.
Oh. Sure. But it definitely gets you thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like it makes you kind of take stock of like, okay, what do I value? What's important to me in the grand scheme of things? Like what kind of future am I like actually preparing for?
And that to me is what makes this whole discussion so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about like, should I invest in this stock or that bond? It's like, it really forces you to confront these like bigger questions about like, what gives your life meaning, right? Like if work as we know it ceases to exist.
What do we even do?
Yeah, like what is there? The article even ends on this really thought-provoking question, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's essentially like, if AGI truly frees us from the need to work, what will we do with all that freedom?
That's such a good question to end on. What do we strive for? What brings us fulfillment? I mean, that's a whole other deep dive we could have right there.
Right.
But it's something that I think is really important to consider, especially as, we see technology advancing at such a rapid pace, because it might be closer than we think.
Exactly. And it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all answer, right?
That's right.
It's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of the beauty of it, right? Like we get to kind of define what that looks like for ourselves.
Absolutely.
This is great. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Of course. Happy to be here.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, me too. Me too.